Today I'm going to show you exactly why the PMC Prodigy One is the better speaker. I'm going to show them why the EPOS is the better speaker. Better imaging, better soul, more accurate, more human. That doesn't even mean anything. It means you listen to graphs instead of music. You wear a beret. And you listen to jazz playlists called reference female vocals.
I have 2 guns, 1 for each of you.
Okay, first of all, that's a fantastic movie. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Bill Paxton, one of my favorite movies of all time. But anyway, today we're comparing 2 very different British bookshelf speakers, because sometimes in hi-fi, choosing the best speaker is a bit like choosing between whiskey and wine. They're different moods. So before we even start talking about sound, it's worth understanding that these 2 speakers come from very different philosophies. The modern EPOS brand is heavily influenced by designer Karl-Heinz Fink, a designer well known for prioritizing musical coherence and natural listening over exaggerated hi-fi effects. And EPOS themselves openly talk about tuning and voicing their speakers by ear, not just by measurements. What exactly are you listening to? Texter. I hate this channel. PMC comes from almost the opposite direction. PMC literally stands for Professional Monitor Company, and that name tells you almost everything you need to know about their philosophy. These speakers come from a world of recording studios, broadcast environments, mixing desks, and professional monitoring. And you can feel that mentality immediately in the way they present music, with precision, focus, and control. Both speakers use very similarly sized mid-bass drivers, but the philosophy behind them already feels different. The EPOS driver looks more traditional, more classic hi-fi, while the PMC gives off more studio monitor energy. And the tweeters continue exactly that same contrast. The EPOS uses a ceramic-coated aluminium dome tweeter, while the PMC uses a soft dome design derived from their professional monitor range. And even visually, the EPOS immediately stands out because of the asymmetrical tweeter placement. According to EPOS, these speakers are designed to be used with the tweeters facing inwards. I actually think they're right. With the tweeters facing inwards, the presentation felt more coherent, the center image locked in better, and the soundstage gained a more natural sense of focus. Science. Magic. I'm not doing this again. The cabinets also tell you an interesting story. The PMC is physically smaller and lighter, while the EPOS feels denser and more substantial in the hand. The EPOS feels designed to integrate naturally into real living rooms, while the PMC feels engineered almost like a compact control room monitor. The EPOS even includes rubber feet and a rear tuning switch specifically designed for placement on furniture or near walls. And that's one of the smartest real-world features I've seen at this price. PMC, on the other hand, goes in a completely different direction with their ATL transmission line design. ATL stands for Advanced Transmission Line, and unlike a traditional bass reflex design, PMC uses a long internal acoustic path inside the cabinet to control and reinforce low frequencies. So instead of simply boosting bass output, the idea is to extend bass more naturally while keeping it tighter and cleaner. One thing that became obvious to me after listening to the EPOS is that these speakers feel designed for real homes. And I mean actual living rooms, not audiophile rooms with acoustic panels and speaker stands that cost more than refrigerators. But where the EPOS really started winning me over was with acoustic music. Jazz sounded wonderful through these speakers. Small acoustic recordings, vocals, string instruments. There's something about the way that EPOS handles timbre that feels incredibly natural. And acoustic guitars in particular sounded fantastic. There's a softness and body to the instrument that just feels right. Not exaggerated, not overly sharp, just believable. And then there's piano, which is one of the hardest instruments for a speaker to reproduce properly. A piano can very easily sound artificially, too metallic, too thin, or strangely compressed in scale. But the EPOS actually did something surprisingly impressive. They managed to preserve a real sense of size and weight to the instrument while still keeping the softness of the keys intact. But then you switch to the PMC Prodigy One, and the entire presentation tightens up. Everything feels faster, more alive. It's almost as if the speaker is peeling layers away from the recording. The acoustic guitar example perfectly shows the difference between these two speakers. With the EPOS, the guitar has more body, more warmth, more organic character. But with the PMC, edges become sharper, small details become easier to follow.
Exactly.
One thing I noticed very quickly is that these two speakers also react differently depending on amplification. And this became even more obvious once I started experimenting with different amplification. At the moment, I'm also testing the Rose RA280 integrated amplifier, and that amplifier has a very interesting personality. It sounds refined, controlled, slightly warm, but also slightly dry at times. And initially, I actually assumed it would pair better with the EPOS, because on paper, that combination made complete sense to me. But surprisingly, the real magic happened with the PMC Prodigy One. The energy and liveliness of the PMC, combined with the cleaner and drier presentation of the Rose, created an incredibly balanced and addictive sound. It was one of those combinations where everything suddenly clicks into place, and strangely enough, even visually, the pairing somehow makes sense. There's a certain industrial elegance shared between them. The small metallic trim around the PMC drivers almost mirrors the detailing around the control knobs of the Rose amplifier. And when you place them side by side, they genuinely look like products designed with a similar philosophy in mind. It sounds ridiculous, but sometimes in hi-fi you can almost see the synergy before you even hear it.
Aesthetic frequency response. That means absolutely nothing.
And yet somehow I know exactly what he means. And honestly, that pairing surprised me a bit, because with my resident reference system, based around the McCormack DNA-1 power amplifier and the Copland 2 preamp, I still consistently prefer the EPOS. The larger soundstage, the fuller vocals, the richer presentation just connected with me emotionally on that system. But the Rose completely changed the equation. And I think that says something very important about hi-fi. Sometimes you're not just hearing the speaker, you're hearing the relationship between components. Another interesting difference appeared during longer listening sessions. The EPOS made me want to listen to full albums. Hours would pass without fatigue. The PMC constantly pulled my attention into the recording, which can be incredibly exciting and also more mentally engaging. With badly recorded material, the PMC can become brutally honest. It exposes compression, harshness, recording flaws. The EPOS tends to smooth things slightly, making older or imperfect recordings easier to enjoy.
Accuracy. It's called mercy.
With jazz and acoustic music, I personally found myself gravitating more towards the EPOS. But with more technical or layered recordings, the PMC became incredibly addictive. The room interaction between these two speakers is actually really interesting, because both of them are surprisingly tolerant of real-world placement. The EPOS with the real switch configured correctly, it can work remarkably well on furniture, close to walls, and in normal living room environments. But once you place the EPOS on really good dedicated stands, you realize just how much more performance is hiding inside the speaker.
She was born for greater things.
Not to me. The soundstage opens up, the bass tightens, imaging improves, everything becomes larger and more dimensional. And that makes the EPOS a really clever design, in my opinion, because it adapts surprisingly well to both worlds, furniture or proper audiophile stands. But the PMC approaches the room completely different. These speakers actually seem very comfortable, working relatively close to walls and nearby surfaces. And that makes sense once you hear the type of bass they produce. It's tighter, cleaner, faster, less rounded overall, so it tends to excite furniture and nearby surfaces less aggressively than the fuller sounding EPOS. And because of that, the PMC remains surprisingly composed even in more difficult or compact spaces, almost like a speaker designed with real studio environments in mind, where equipment, desks, and nearby surfaces are always part of the equation.
Controlled dispersion, baby. I have absolutely no idea what that means.
And interestingly, while the PMC absolutely benefits from good stands, the difference is nearly as dramatic as it is with the EPOS, because the PMC already sounds very focused and controlled by nature, whereas the EPOS gains a huge sense of scale and openness once you really let it breathe properly. At some point, I stopped trying to decide which speaker was technically superior. I just started asking myself which one made me want to play one more song. But at the same time, the more I listened, the more obvious certain differences became. The EPOS simply sounds bigger. The soundstage feels larger, deeper, more immersive. Vocals have more body, more physical presence, more density. And instruments occupy space in a way that simply feels more realistic. And even the bass presentation feels fuller and more complete. Now, we are obviously still talking about compact bookshelf speakers here, so don't expect gigantic subwoofer bass. But the EPOS delivers bass with more weight, more roundness, and more physical impact. And because of that, music through the EPOS often feels more dynamic, more emotionally convincing. PMC feels more focused on precision and articulation. It sounds faster, cleaner, more alive. But sometimes, also slightly smaller and less physically substantial overall.
Objection.
Overruled. And honestly, that difference also makes sense physically. The EPOS is the heavier speaker, the more solid speaker, and also the more expensive speaker. So in some ways, you're absolutely here where that extra money and cabinet mess went. So who wins? I think that's the wrong question, because after spending time with both of these speakers, what I realized is that they're trying to achieve two completely different experiences. The EPOS wants you to feel the music, it wants warmth, texture, flow, it wants you to sit down late at night, put on a jazz record, and forget about the equipment.
That's called happiness.
But the PMC Prodigy One wants to show you deeper into the recording. It wants you to hear everything.
Right?
And depending on the album, sometimes I agreed with him. And sometimes I agreed with this lunatic. But that's the beauty of HiFi. There isn't one perfect sound. There's only the sound that connects with you. So precision or soul? Honestly, I'd probably want both. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Texture. You're romanticizing distortion. You definitely iron your socks.
Feed me detail.
Music is not an Excel
And
spreadsheet.
sometimes recordings are supposed to sound accurate.
I can't talk to this guy.
High resolution, baby.
It talks like a synthesizer.
The graphs agree with
It talks like a synthesizer.